Hi there, my name's Andy. I'm one of the wine specialists based here at Waitrose Food Hall in John Lewis, Oxford Street. And today I'm going to share with you one of our new whiskies. This is our own exclusive selection, barrel selection from Woodford Reserve. Our buyer, John Vine, has worked together with Chris Morris, the master blender at Woodford Reserve, to select 20 barrels, that's about 4,000 bottles of our own exclusive blend. We've stocked the regular Woodford Reserve for many years. It's one of the keystones of our American whiskey collection, but this is a new, rather more intensely flavoured alternative offering. Woodford Reserve has been going since 1812, and it's a registered National Historic Landmark in the States, one of the oldest distilleries in Kentucky. It relies for its character on 4 or 5 things. The first is the mash bill, the grains that go together to make up the whiskey. It's got a very high proportion of corn, about 72% corn, 18% rye, so quite a spicy backbone to this whiskey as well, and 10% malted barley, no wheat. They use, in common with a lot of bourbon producers, very mineral-rich waters. This is very different to Scotch, where the water tends to be from a very soft water source. In Kentucky, the water is mostly filtered through limestone and has that very high mineral content. A long fermentation at Woodford Reserve, very long drawn-out fermentation, which gives added complexity of flavour to the finished whiskey. And then an interesting distillation process for a bourbon. Woodford Reserve rely heavily on pot stills, Scottish stills actually, made by Forsyths for them. Most bourbon is distilled in a combination of a pot still and what they call a doubler, or like a separate column still attached. In the case of Woodford Reserve, it's a blend of this whiskey distilled in pot stills and whiskey distilled in a continuous still. It's then aged, like all bourbon, in new white oak, white American oak barrels, heavily toasted or charred, and it's aged for anywhere up to 8 years before the barrels are selected for blending. Okay, after all that, what have we got in the whiskey? Well, in the original Woodford, we've got a lovely combination of mellow spices, quite a lot of vanilla, a little bit of cinnamon, some fruity notes, quite soft toffeed aromas, and a little bit of spiciness from the rye. Now, if we move to the exclusive selection, those characters are amplified. What John and Chris have selected are obviously barrels that emphasise the fruity character. So there's a lot of lovely dried cherry, dark fruits character, as well as distinct note from the rye. Really quite sweet characters like maple syrup, and yeah, the vanilla's there as well. Grilled nuts. And something quite juicy with it as well. I'm going to try this with a splash of water. And this will help open up the whiskey, maybe release some different characters. Yeah, so in the standard distiller select, a lot more grain notes are evident. The spicy rye and the aroma of the malted barley and some sweet corn. Those fruity notes are actually amplified in the exclusive selection. very fruity, very spicy, quite nutty. Woodford Reserve have quite an interesting approach to whisky tasting that you can read about on their website, and they suggest taking in turns different foods to try in combination with the whisky. So starting off with parmesan, not so much smelling it but tasting it and having it with the whisky, toasted nuts, and we've got pecans and Brazils, hazelnuts in there, dried cranberries and cherries, and those are definite notes that you pick up in the whisky. Fresh orange, and that's not so much a note that you pick up in the whisky per se, but the combination of flavours is really quite magical. Dark chocolate, and again that's not something I was picking up particularly in the whisky, but the combination of flavours is beautiful. And then finally maple syrup. Now that's something I've already mentioned. There's a note that I picked up in the in our exclusive selection, but that combination of sweetness and the whisky really works well together. The flavours play well together. So try each of those in turn. It's a fun exercise that you can try at home. This whisky is exceptional value at the moment. It's reduced by £8.50 to only £25 until Father's Day. So if my sons happen to watch this, subtle hint, the exclusive selection is only £25 and it's worth every penny.